Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to address you here on the floor of the House of Representatives and being recognized. I have been listening to this debate over the last week or so, and it's me considerably to watch divisions being driven between the American people over symbolism that has now been redefined by a lot of members of the opposite party. I regret, like all of us do in this country, the tragic and brutal and evil murders of the 9 people in Charleston, South Carolina. I pray for them and their families, and they stood up and showed us an example of faith that I think surpasses any that I have seen in my lifetime by forgiving the killer. I'm not to that point in my faith, Mr. Speaker, at least that I can tell, but that was very moving. And they didn't want to see a division created. They wanted to heal, and they wanted to see Christ's love come out of Charleston. Charleston is a wonderful and beautiful city, and I don't know where I'd go to find nicer people if I couldn't go actually home, Mr. Speaker. So I can't say enough good about that. But I've listened to this rhetoric that has poured forth over these days, and it appears to me that it's now being turned into something that is division rather than unifying. We unified in our grief with the people of South Carolina, the people of Charleston, and now we're seeing the then understood by the majority of the American people. I grew up in the North, Mr. Speaker, and the Confederate flag always was a symbol of the pride of the South from where I grew up, and my family, my predecessors, my ancestors were abolitionists. They went to war to put an end to slavery. Mr. Speaker, I have now in my hand, this is a leather-bound New Testament Bible that was carried in the shirt pocket of my great-uncle John Richardson, and it's written inside here. It was presented to him on the eve of his departure for the war in July 1962. And he walked home 3 years to the day with this Bible in his shirt pocket, 3 years to the day, it having protected him. It's got fly specks on it from laying open by the campfire. It's got verses that are written in it. I found his picture, his musket, his bayonet, his belt buckle, and his ink vial. That's what's left of this man who committed himself to putting an end to slavery. But his cousin, my 5 times great-grandfather, was killed in that effort. Many gave their lives to put an end to slavery. And as I was standing before Lincoln's memorial reading his second inaugural address, and I'll read that into the record, Mr. Speaker, this component, Lincoln's second inaugural address, March 4th, 1865, he said, "Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and every drop of blood drawn by the lash shall be paid by another drawn by the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, and so still must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." Mr. Speaker, these are not disputed numbers. The numbers of Americans who were killed putting an end to slavery and saving the Union, 600,000. Another number not disputed. The number of black Africans who were brought to what is now the United States to be slaves, 600,000. I take you back to the words, "Every drop of blood drawn by the lash shall be paid by another drawn by the sword. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." A huge price has been paid. It's paid primarily by Christians. There are many who stepped up because they profoundly believed that they needed to put an end to slavery. This country has put this behind us. We've been through this brutal and bloody battle. We've gone back together for the reconstruction, and we've healed this country together. And I regret deeply that that we're watching this country be divided again over a symbol of free country. When I go to Germany and they've outlawed the swastika, I look at them and I think, we have a First Amendment. That can't happen here in the United States because we're open enough. We have to tolerate the desecration of Old Glory, the American flag. Yet we have people here on the floor that say they're offended by a symbol. They're the ones that are putting it up for all to see. And then they're saying we should outlaw that so the American people don't have a chance to see our heritage. Everything about America's history is not glorious. Everything about our history is not right in our judgment, looking back in hindsight. But none of us know what it was like for the people that lived during that time and that era. We can accept our history. We can be proud of our history. We can unify our country. We can grieve for those who were murdered. And we can preserve our First Amendment rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.